Tafara Makaza today. Tafara, can you briefly share with us your story?
Okay, thank you, Strength. Hello, everyone. It's such a great opportunity to be able to talk to, like high school students all over. I know, like these are crazy times with Corona and everything. So yeah, like Strength said, my name is Tafara. I'm from Zimbabwe, from Bulawayo. Yeah, I grew up in Bulawayo. That's where I did my primary school, my high school, and later on came here to the US to study. So I really want this experience to be really casual to everyone. I'm gonna give everyone an opportunity to ask questions because I want this to be beneficial to you, in as much as possible. I want you to come out of this session with information that is going to help you find opportunities. I remember when I was, oh, there's someone who's studying like, in the USA, there's someone who's studying in the UK. And, to help you guys. Okay. So, yeah, I'm making a lot of mistakes. One of my friends who's actually on this Zoom call, he knows this. His name is Mshango Liam. He's on this Zoom call. He wrote math when he was in Form 3 and he got an A. So here I was like someone writing math like a year ahead and I'm still in Form 3 and I'm failing the math that is like literally Form 3. And someone in my class has written like Form 4 math and passed, right? So that just showed me that anything is possible, right? So I started studying, and before I knew it, I was among those people in class who are like doing really good. But we all know the backstory. Like you go back home and you study. That's the backstory. And usually people just get to see like the on stage part when you're like getting like 20 out of 20 on a math test and all that, right? So it's really up to you to make those changes. And like especially for certain subjects like math, it's just people who do not practice, like developing that ethic. So and unlearning the mistakes you made and figuring out like what you missed when you were not serious, right? So that was like in summary my O level. And I was also playing chess in high school. And when I was playing chess, I started meeting a lot of people who were like doing really well in school and stuff like that. So it's about like the community that I started developing and all that, right? So yeah, I managed to get 10 A's, 10 A's, and I had like a B in English. And once you do that, you start thinking, oh, like things are really possible. And I went to Mpopoma High School, which is a very good public school in Bulawayo as well. And I met all these other kids who were doing sciences, who were coming from schools all over, who had 9, 10 A's, whatever. So, and the pressure now, like of being the guy with like 10 A's, and I don't know if you guys know something called imposter syndrome, where you just feel like you overachieved and you feel like it's not really your results or like really your stuff, right? So you start really studying so that you just keep the standards high and like expectations from friends and from yourself. So when I got to Mpopoma High School, I started hearing stories about these guys who did A level, like MPC, got 15 points, and these guys are now in USA going to Harvard, all these stories, these crazy stories, right? And remember, like coming from like my high school, like premier, I had no friends that I knew that got like scholarships. I only knew scholarships like from like Delta and all these places. Like you only heard like, oh, this guy had a scholarship, but I never really met this thing. So when I went to Mpopoma, I was really exposed to like, oh, so if you want to get a scholarship, like you pass, then there are these things called SATs. I started learning about all these things when I was now in Mpopoma because I have a feeling like people there had like a lot of exposure in terms of like scholarships and all that. So if you're lucky enough to have that exposure, then you start getting. So yeah, in Popoma, I continued like studying really hard. I met very like inspirational people, like Eric, who I'm sharing today's session with. Eric. He went to Popoma as well, and he was like a year above me. And I saw these guys, like because in Popoma, like back like then, like people knew that people in Popoma were, like was very like smart, right? And here I am like meeting all these guys who are like really the smartest guys in Popoma, and I got to know them, seeing like how their work ethic, and they live really close to like where I live. So I really saw myself in them, and I started studying as well, and one thing that I forgot to mention is that you always want to like challenge yourself, because I remember even when I was at Premier, they didn't have like pure sciences. I was the first guy at one student in a classroom writing like physics and chemistry, and I passed that, and that gave me confidence. Even at I did like 5 subjects. Some of you guys know, like I did math, physics, chemistry. You managed me like sort of like reassure, okay, if I put my time in. After that, I got stuck with this, community of really like amazing people who got an opportunity to study like in the US, and I started asking how they did it. And so a year after my time at Mpopo, with when I now had like this 23 points, I was actually at NAST. Some of you guys might know the scholarship there, but then like I really and all that. But it starts with like your daily habits. Like you have to want it for yourself. Then you start finding out college in USA, and I'm studying my lot more stuff. As you guys might feel like there's a lot of things to talk about, like, and especially like you guys can be typing comments as if you can see there's like a chat there. You can be typing questions there so that like we get to know like some of the questions that you guys have, okay? Because like I want you guys to feel like to feel like I want to relate to you guys and sort of like get the position that you guys are in. Ask me like any question that you might want to ask, like, because I know we all come from different backgrounds. We're exposed to like different misconceptions, misinformation about scholarships. So I really want you guys to get a lot from this. Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll give it back to Strength, and maybe we can see how we can proceed. And please, people, do ask questions. If you're in this group, there's 15 people right now on this Zoom call. If you are here, you should have a question, right? Unless if you already know. But I would urge you to always ask questions, and get something. All right. Strength, are you still there? Okay. It seems like Strength is not around. So can someone type in like a question on the chat section? Then I can go on from there. Or could you, if you are there, you can take over for a bit, or ask like a question. Okay, maybe just in the chat. Can someone, like, if you're in high school, can you please just type in the chat so that at least I get an idea of which audience, like what to talk about.
Well, hello.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Now I am like 15 years old and I live in Algeria. And like I want to study at a high school abroad, but like all the high schools like Andover, Phillips Exeter, like the most elite boarding schools in the US, like asking for the SSAT or the SAT tests, but like in Algeria we don't have access to them at all. And I'm like wondering, and it is obligatory to do these tests instead to apply. So what can you like give me
Oh
as an
yeah,
advice?
thanks for that question. So from what I know, like SATs are usually like they are for colleges, which is colleges, I mean university. Yeah, I think you can double check. Do you guys have an education USA office? All right. So okay, I'll have to check in with that, but I don't think you need SATs for high schools. And just to answer your question, I think there are some, you have to look at some international like schools here in the US, or some, because most people that I know who go to like international high schools, it's either like, yeah, institutions like African Leadership Academy in South Africa. Do you know of that school? Yeah. So it's mostly like international schools somewhere, then they later come to the US. I think that's the most common route that I always see. And also like if you're 16, I think that's actually like a perfect time to start preparing. And it's good that you are 16 and you know about SAT. And for people who are like on the call who don't know about SATs, SATs are just like standardized exams. Like, like if you're in Algeria, they probably have their own local examination board. In Zimbabwe, we have ZIMSEC. If you're in SA, I think they have like their metric curriculum. So for everything to be fair, there needs to be like a standard test, like a universal test for everyone. And that's the SAT. If you literally just Google SAT college test, you find it. And you will find actually that this year and probably next year, most schools are removing the requirement for the SAT. And some have been doing this like from like as back as 2016. So most colleges, even universities, are removing like these SAT requirements. And my school, which is Williams, just removed because of like COVID and all these things. So yeah, so the way they select students is called like a holistic process. And what that essentially means is that they look at different things. They don't just look at academic, like your A-level results or your SATs. They look at different things like ethos of giving back, like community engagement. They look at your leadership experience. They look at like extracurricular activities, and they look at your academics. So you can have like bad A-level results, as someone might call it, or you might have like A-level results that are not as good like compared to your peers. But if you did some other things at school that might make you outstanding, because at the end of the day, I think you'll be competing or with other applicants, right? Not like this. I know some schools will tell you that they want these like elite candidates and all that, but at the end of the day, if you try your best, like in each of those like different sections, right? Like for example, like I told you, like I was playing chess, and after high school, I was working with a couple of friends who are actually now like in the US and some in Canada, who were doing some community engagement projects. We were like helping other like high school students and stuff like that. So a lot of things that you can do to show leadership even in your community. It doesn't have to be leadership at home. So for me, at least that's what I think, like that's a trend that I've seen working for most people, to see like you have to do a lot of things that shows like that you're outstanding. So we all know that like we cannot all be like straight A students. And like getting A's, especially like at an education system like our own, like if you're in ZIM or some countries where it all depends on one final exam. We all know that like it just depends on the circumstances that you had, either like at school or like during the time you wrote. So I hope I answered you that question correctly, to say it's not all about academics. I know people who've like managed to get full scholarships who had like 6.7, 8 points out of 15. So I hope that answers your question. And this one saying, so tell us about the procedure you went through. Yeah, I'll get back to that, but I think I sort of like touched. So there's a question which is saying from Rufaro, what are the requirements for more scholarships? So like I said, for more scholarships, okay, I will refer you guys to Education USA, but because of like, for the benefit of everyone, I'll just touch base on like the requirements because I think it's important. Then I'll just go to the other questions. So usually like most universities, they'll need your high school transcript from Form 1 up to Form 6. Okay, so you talk to your school and they check your report card, then they check then they check your results, term 1, term 2, term 3. Those results, you just compile it into like term 1, term 2, term 3, from form 1 up to form 6. So these are just papers that your school will make for you, and they will sign based on your results scripts. Okay, so they will require those transcripts. Then they will require 2 recommendation letters from like your high school teacher. So if you're doing, let's say, math, biology, chemistry, if you're doing history, English, and what else, like, yeah, any other subject, right? If you're doing all those subjects, you just pick 2 teachers who will write like a recommendation letter. So what I would suggest you is to start building those relationships with your teachers, so that at least they have something to say when they're writing your recommendation. Yeah, so they look at those things. Then there is application essays, where application essays is just literally your chance to shine, right? It's a chance to talk to these admissions officers, like the people who get to decide whether you get the scholarship or not. It's your time to tell them about yourself, your story, right? Like I said, we all have different backgrounds, different circumstances. You know, some might have 5 A's, but maybe they're the only person in 10 years at their school to get 5 A's. Someone might get 10 A's, but they're coming from St. Faith, or like a school where people are getting 14 A's or something like that. Okay, so you have to make sure that like you really like express like your your circumstances and all that. So I hope that answers you, like transcript, essays, and also SATs, like I mentioned, but most schools don't require SATs. But there's a lot of essays and transcripts. So yeah, that's that. I will leave my email below, and if you guys just you can check in with like Education USA. I think we'll talk more about this as the session proceeds. Then, okay, in what way would you say liberal arts system has helped you? Okay, so liberal arts, guys, I'm going through the questions, guys. I'm sorry if I'm slow, but I'll try to go through as fast as I can, and I can always get back to some questions. So the liberal arts system, guys, is the education system, like in some colleges here in USA. The liberal there just says like, I like to think it as like academic freedom, right? To say, for example, like I'm studying physics here. For me to have a physics degree, it's not like a local like university like in at NAS or UZ, where they'll say take these 5 physics classes per semester of your university for the next 4 years. Okay, so here it's like for you to get like a physics degree or a computer science degree or economics degree or yeah, anything like that. Okay, it just means that like you have to take a certain number of physics classes. So maybe they'll say you have to take 10 physics courses or classes, right? By the time you graduate. And these classes will be varying like from like the low level classes to the like difficult ones. So during your 4 years, like for example here at Williams, per semester I take 4 classes. So I can add 2 classes that are part of my physics degree or major, as we call it. Then I'll take 2 other classes that interest me. So that's the liberal part. That's the free part to explore other fields. So you might find that although I'm studying astrophysics, I've done economics, I've done computer science, I've done maths, I've done history, I've done writing, I've done like some speaking classes, I've done dancing. So the liberal arts really opens up your mind and teaches you critical thinking skills. Like you can have a conversation with someone about computer science, you can have a conversation about like what's going on, like in terms of like the economy. You can have a conversation about like stocks, the stock market. You can have conversations with people, like you can fit in different rooms. So I think for me that's what has helped me, like that's what I've gotten, especially like from Williams, because you learn to think on your feet, and it actually helps me a lot in business as well. Okay, so another question. I hope that answers your question about like how Williams has helped me and all that. Okay. So can I still sorry guys. So can I still get a scholarship even if I don't have perfect A grades and there's mixtures of B's and C's? So I think I've answered that one about transcript. They look at different things, and also guys, your transcripts like tell a story, right? If you start off with C's and go on to B's, like that tells a story, and you can always explain this in your application, like I said, during like when you're writing your essay and all that. But it's not always about grades, guys. Okay. So Mhlanguli is asking, what are the requirements or prerequisites for attaining a graduate study in the USA? So for this one, Liam, I'm sorry, you have to refer to Education USA, but there's also an equivalent of SATs called GREs and GMAT. So those are like some exams that we have to take as well. I think you take them online, but I'm not sure. You have to check. Sorry about that one, but yeah, that's the only requirement that I know. But I'm sure I can like link you with someone who's doing graduate school and they can help you with that as well. Okay, so here's a question from Wandile Sivanda. She's saying, or he's saying, what did you do for the community, if you don't mind to share? Oh, okay. So like I mentioned, I was part. Okay, I volunteered. Like I worked with a couple of organizations. One of them was Leader Us Today. Leaders Today was started by Mzingwane, like alumni called Dalumuzi. Later on went to Harvard and Oxford or something like that. So this was like a community organization which taught leadership through entrepreneurship, and I was one of the facilitators at different high schools. So we go on to leading. What they basically do, like at Leaders Today, is they go to a school and start a club right during the term. Then each school club will find. Okay, so I see there is like someone wants to talk. Okay, let me just finish this about like what I did. So yeah, so they go to a school and the club chooses a project, like an entrepreneurial project. Then the clubs invest in that project, like they give them some funding. Then once the school starts that project, like I remember in Popoma, like the Leader Today club was cooking fadza, I think, like lunch fadza. Like they hired a few community women to start cooking lunch at the school, and they would work with the club in terms of like the revenues and all that. So yeah, so I was like a Leader Today facilitator. How many schools did you apply to? I applied to a lot of schools, I think 14 or something like that. Then someone saying I'm applying for ALA, which is African Leadership Academy. It's an international high school in South Africa, I think. I can send you my essays. That's fine if you want me to review some of your essays. Then what are your SATs? I don't remember, and it's not about SAT, okay? That's Patrick, I think. I mean, I will leave my email. I can tell you more, but I really don't want you to get logged in this whole idea that it's all about grades. We are all different, okay? But usually, like people do really well in terms of like the math and the English. At least that's what it was for me. So before I proceed to these questions, let me just give someone an opportunity to speak because I see they're raising their hand here on Zoom, okay? Let me see if there are other people also raising their hands. Guys, keep the questions coming, okay, there.
Hey Tafara.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, bruh.
I'm
Hope you're
doing
fine.
great. I'm doing good.
Great. So, okay, I haven't heard you talking about something like the IPs, the other alternative for A levels, or the other alternative for the SATs or SSATs that can also get you to the university. I want to really confirm with you whether if it's probable that someone gets a place in USA or in any university in USA. I mean those really prominent universities, or let me simplify it, maybe say big universities like the Harvards and the Yale and the stuff. That to those universities like those take people who have done IBs, or they strictly take the SATs and the A level and other A level curriculums. For example, the one that is done in Zimbabwe, Zimsek or Cambridge.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. So did you say IB? Yeah, IB is taken like because I think all like the high schools here in the US they do IBs. Okay, so usually like generally like most schools, what I've seen also like the best way, the best place to get this kind of information is Education USA. But I'll tell you what I know. So most universities here in the US they'll say the minimum like sort of like requirement for you to apply for a scholarship, you can only apply if you are qualified to attend a local university. So like you must at best have all the qualifications to go to a local university. Then you can apply to like a US university. So I hope that answers your question. So for example, like if you're in Botswana, if you're in Zambia, if you're in Algeria, if you're in Egypt, if you have the minimum requirements for, I don't know, I hope that answers your question there. Then IB, yes, IB is used in here in the US, so they definitely accept that. But SATs are optional. Some schools require them, some do not. My school, like I said, they just say they do not require them, but it's recommended that you take them. So it's just up to you, like in terms of like writing them. Then someone is I don't know, is that a good answer for you, or do you want to add more on that? I'll be.
Okay.
Oh, is he still on?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm answered. Then I'm sorry. Let me then. Yeah, I have my other question. The
Okay.
last ones. Okay, as someone who has studied actual science.
I think you are cutting there. Can you please type that last question? So I just heard you talking about actuarial science. I didn't actually finish. I just did 1 year there. Okay. So can you please type your question? I think it cut there. Can you confirm, Kuzi? I'll go to this question saying, did you write TOEFL exam? I think TOEFL exam is like test for English as a foreign language or something like that. So these exams are not required for me because, I did my high school in Zimbabwe, and in Zimbabwe, we use like English from, we use English from like, early childhood education up to high school or university. So I wasn't required to write those. So I didn't write them. So another question from Zimbaisha there is saying, did you need an external scholarship at Williams, or rather, no, Williams gives the scholarships. So most schools in the US, like most schools that, like most top schools or something like that, if I might use that term, they have like, they offer the scholarship. So it's different, like from like, I know coming from back home, usually you have these external organizations like Econet, Delta, Old Mutual that offer scholarships. But in the US, you apply for admission, or then you get into like a school, but you can also apply for financial aid, which is the scholarship, like from the school. You apply from the school as well. So yeah, Williams, once you get in, you attend. That's like their rule. It's called need blind. Need blind is like so there are need-based scholarships. Need-based scholarships is just saying if you apply, right? If you apply, then they will check how much money you have. Then once they check how much money you have, they check how much money they have for scholarship. If they have enough and they think your application is really good, they'll accept you. So your admittance is need-based. It's based on your need too for a little bit. Then if it's need blind, it just says they don't really care whether you have money or not. They'll just check. If your application is good and they accept you, they'll give you the rest. They'll cover your cost of attendance, which is a really like amazing like investment if you think about it. So it's something to be always grateful for, and it's something that you should always look out for when you're applying. If you know that you cannot pay for like your cost of attendance, because I know for most of us these schools are very expensive. Like think of something like $60,000 per semester. That's usually like something that is very expensive. Okay, so I have another. So guys, please keep posting your questions. Raise your hand if you need any questions. If you feel like this conversation is steering in a direction that you didn't think is going, just ask us your question and we'll be sure to answer that question. So there is a question from Digital Backpack. It's saying, what is your advice on the number of schools one should apply to? So this question I'll have to be careful when so like I said, I applied to a lot of schools, but the sort of like the rule of thumb here is for you when you're applying, you look at your application. Like what I used to do is just look at other people who are like, who got accepted maybe the year before. And what you always want to do is to have like schools that you have a really good chance of getting into. Then schools that are like the top schools that you think you'll be lucky if you got in, right? Then you have like middle. So you spread it out, you spread your chances out, because guys, you are never sure. And another thing to know, don't always say, oh, I want to go to these high top universities, you know, like Harvard and all that. Remember that there's a lot of like competition. People from all over the world are applying for these schools. And also remember that schools that you might not think are good, like you might not know about, right? Some of you maybe didn't even know about Williams College, right? But it's like one of the best schools here in the US. Like if you look at it, right, if you Google, it's one of the best schools. So there are a lot more schools that you don't know about that are actually really good schools. And an average school here, if you compare it to like your local university, you might find that this school, the average school here is so much better in many ways. Okay, so always have that perspective. Like you don't really need to go to all these like, you know, big names. That you just need what's best for you. If you find a school that's generous enough to, you know, like give you like a scholarship for you to study 4 years, or you know, and get amazing opportunities like, you know, jobs, like I really hope that Eric will come and join this Twitter. I will try to reach him on the side when maybe could takes over, because he's worked at like, you know, Twitter, and that's just an example. Like, you know, you come out from like these high schools, like, you know, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, or whatever country, you name it, and you get this amazing education essentially for free. It's an investment in you, and you get to work at these companies. I have friends who I know worked at like Google, Facebook, and all these amazing companies. And all it took was like an investment, you know, like in like, you know, their work ethic, looking for opportunities. So, you know, really like you guys can definitely do it too. So I hope that Eric will join us so that you talk a little more about, you know, the opportunity side once you come this side, you know. So it doesn't really matter what school, what school you have, as long as you get that scholarship and you do your best to shine in that environment. Okay. So I'll continue to answer more questions here. I hope I answered that question about, you know, the number of schools, spreading it out. Okay. So people usually say 5 is a good number. Some say 6, some say 10, some say, you know, like, I think six is a good number for me. I don't know. What others might say there. So here's a question from Patrick. Okay. What would you advise? Why would you advise someone to apply to Williams? What makes it special over? It's the best liberal arts college in the US. I will have to say that because it's my school, and also because Forbes says so, and because a lot of people say so. But it's literally one of the best schools in the US. If you just Google how many schools are in the US, look at it. It's one of the best schools in the US. But going back to my previous point about, don't just look at like schools to say, oh, you know, like don't be so committed to a school so that when you apply for it, you won't put as much effort in your other applications like to other schools. Okay. Once that school rejects you, you might find that your other application that you didn't put much effort in, you know, they might also not get accepted because you didn't put much effort in. You were busy concentrating on that Harvard application or that MIT application or that Princeton application. Okay. So yeah, I would advise you to come to Williams because yeah, it's a liberal arts. You don't have to know. One advantage that I like about studying in the US is you don't always have to know what you're going to study. You know, when you're applying to most local universities, you already have to choose. Once you get in, you have to say, oh, I want to study computer engineering. I want to study biochemical. I want to study law. I want to study journalism. You always have to declare these things. But in the US, you only declare when you go to your third year to say, oh, you know, I think I'm interested in this. This is a liberal arts college. Say, oh, I'm interested in computer science. I'm interested in economics. I'm interested in health sciences. I'm interested in like public health. I'm interested in you know, in law, in pre-med, you know, and all this. So it gives you that opportunity to explore other fields, especially Williams, because it's such a liberal, you know, like liberal arts is like as liberal as they go, some people say. So it gives you this opportunity to apply. And also there is so much, like so many benefits. Like for example, at Williams and a lot of other schools, the student to faculty ratio is 7:1. That means you have one teacher and 7 students. I've been to classes where there is 2 students and 1 professor. Yes, 2 students and 1 professor. That is crazy. But imagine how much you learn. The quality of education when you are in a very small class is so different. It's challenging. Like you cannot skip class or anything like that. Like it's very challenging. So those are some of the advantages and also the opportunities of just coming to these schools where companies like Google, Facebook, like all these big banks like come on campus to tell you about the work that they are doing, and also the amazing like alumni, people who went to Williams or people who went to all these other schools. Like there's like a lot of schools, has, Northeastern, like all these other schools like Harvard or whatever. I don't like naming those because I don't want you guys to think those are the only schools that are there. But there are a lot of people who go to these schools, and once they leave, they will keep coming back and they'll stay in your network and help you, like explore like your opportunities and all that. So yeah, in a nutshell, I'd say that's why like there's so many opportunities. And also the students you meet from all over the world, the students you meet from all backgrounds, you can like, get an opportunity to, like sort of like share or create something with those students. Okay. So I will go to many more questions here. There's one question left, which is good. So, as a former student, NAST student, what is the evaluation of the program and handling that is offered in NAST? I think it's pretty good because like I didn't like really finish, so I can't really give an evaluation based on my 1 year experience at NAST. But I think what you have to think about like local students, if you think about it, is they are like in different like environments, so obviously like the resources won't be like as compared to like like these US schools where you have like an ice hockey field like at a school and all these like other crazy things, like the amount of equipment. If you're doing uh like after, like if you're doing like computer science, all these like other things, like I think what I was mentioning before, like you get to like I got to go to like visit like Wall Street, go to see all these big banks at Wall Street, meet people who are working at like all these amazing companies, because obviously like in the US, like the economy is like most tech companies, or the big four as they call them, like that are here in the US. So it's very like there's a very close relationship between industry and school. Like your professors will be doing research with these, like game development companies will be doing research with Google, Facebook. So that close relationship, I think, with academia and like like this private sector or whatever, I think that is something that like US schools will always have, and it makes them outstanding. And also like the international culture, like when you're at schools like this compared to like schools back home, here you have people from all over the world, because that's what you want from universities, right? You want an experience to learn about life, to learn about like the world. You need like like your it should be like a microcosm of the world, right? Like your school should be a microcosm, like a representation of how the world is today. So you have to be like, at least like if you're like at a school where you meet people from different backgrounds, that's literally a representation of the world. Like once you start going out there and you're trying to do things in the world, you need to have that exposure to be like, oh, so if there's someone who is in, like someone who's coming from this place, what languages do they speak in in this country? What languages do they speak? Like you need to know all those things, and you only get to know those things if you have friends who are coming from all those places, right? So I'll pass it to Kozi, maybe to just say a little bit or something. Then Eric will take over. So yeah, Kozi, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Tafara, for such an insightful speech. Then Eric Khumalo, I believe, was introduced in the beginning of the program. He will tell us more about his story. He will touch on financial aid, and he will also tell us what people can currently do right now to improve their chances to study abroad.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kutsi. Thank you, Tafara, for the session. How are you, everyone? Okay. So yeah, my name is Eric. I went to Zinyatini High, got 8 A's, then went to Mpopoma, did sciences, applied to USAP, and right now, yeah, I just graduated from UC Berkeley. Hi, Ibitule. I just graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in data science, focusing on human behavior and psychology. So, how was my journey? Okay. So when I applied to the US, the first time when I applied, I didn't get in. That was way back in 2013, and then I took a gap year. So during that gap year, that's when I had to strengthen some other part of my application. So there is the SAT, there is like your extracurricular activities and your high school grades, yeah, and all the stuff. So for me, my SAT wasn't that great, especially the critical reading part. Yeah, my SAT wasn't that great, yeah, especially the critical reading part. So I had to actually improve on so many other parts of my application, so such that at least I'll have I'll have a very strong chance. So what I did, my academics were very good. My extracurricular activities, I think I was involved in about 16 high school clubs when I was at Bokoma High, just ranging from debate, public speaking, leaders today, and I was a Sunday school teacher at church. I used to stay with my younger siblings. I was the oldest, so I just had so many other like responsibilities outside of school within my community. So during my gap year, I taught at I volunteered for a year and a half as a advanced level mathematics teacher and consultant at Ngeta High School. And then I taught at 3 other schools for the government. So I taught at Mate High School, Mate Secondary School. I taught at Cholocho High School, and I also taught at John Landa High School. And then there was also some brief period, I think, for a semester, like 3 months or so, where I worked as an intern with the American Embassy. So I think from there, that's when like we picked up more knowledge on how to assist people or to guide people to apply for colleges in the US. So someone says they have a question.
Well, hi, Eric.
Yeah.
I am from Algeria. Anyway, I want to ask you about the financial aid, like application to the US universities, because they want the SSS by NAS. There is a website which called School and Student Service, and you are supposed to fill it instead to get a scholarship or a financial aid. But the problem is we don't have the same taxes, and I see that, and my parents don't speak English to fill it out, so I should fill it, and I can't understand these taxes and all that thing. Can you like have some tips or anything to help?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I know like filling most of the parts of the application, especially the ones which have to deal with finances. Um, they can that can be very difficult. So I'm not really sure how is there like maybe an education USA like offices or facilities in Algeria. And I know like mostly, especially with right now with filling most of the parts of the common application online, usually there are people who have written more of the information. I think Tafara might answer more on that, on the CSS part. I'll leave it to him. But I think we can maybe even like after this, you can just like, we can maybe like share some resources which you think might be helpful in your situation. Because I think that's a more specific part when it comes to filling out information. I also know like mostly even we have to fill some, we have to help also our parents fill out the correct information. How the US is designed, they just require so much information, and sometimes we just have to take the best educated cases, especially if they want to evaluate how much money your family have, or if you have and they want to know how much the entire household makes in an entire year, and if most of the people who are actually, if most of the breadwinners in the family, they don't have like, if they are maybe self-employed, or if they are just, they have their own business, something like that, sometimes it's difficult to estimate some of those things. So I think your question is kind of a more specific one. We can get in touch after this, just to chat. Yep. Then any other question? Okay. So for me, I'm a Mastercard Foundation scholar. At Berkeley. So yeah, unfortunately, the Mastercard Foundation scholar has ended some of its programs for undergrads in the US, but I think it still has more partner institutions. I think there's University of Edinburgh in Scotland, but it's funding so many people for if you want to get a master's at some college in the US. But I think it has made more partnerships with local African universities like University of Cape Town, some Ashes University, and some very good institutions. So who can be a Mastercard scholar? Anyone can be a Mastercard scholar as long as you are highly gifted academically. You are so involved in so many extracurriculars and activities which will demonstrate your leadership skills and abilities. If you have if you have a burning desire to give back and to create change in your community, and if you're also not able to pay for like a huge part. So the Mastercard Foundation usually targets people who are like at the bottom quartile in terms of income or everything in their country. So, but mostly what I would like to emphasize, just for the Mastercard scholarship, that's also true to so many other types of financial aid which you'll get. You're looking for high academics, top leadership skills and qualities, your give back ethos, your drive, your passion, and also. So I said that's true for also like so many other types of scholarship, just academics, leadership skills and qualities, and also sometimes just having a good story, being as like sometimes someone might have all of those qualities, but then don't be able to actually show them or tell them when they're writing their application. So I believe most of the people attempt to apply for colleges in the US, especially, you'd have done so many other things, but sometimes you might overlook all those things. For example, you help your parents, do something back home. So you might not write about that in your application when that's where you are. So write about the things which take the most of your time, and write about the things which are so passionate about, and the things that make an impact. And then I think that's it. Where to find out information about SATs and research colleges in the US. There is information on College Board. Okay, so I'll give it to Tafara right now.
So another question that I would direct both to Tafara and Eric. the question that I'm getting is, during these times of COVID-19, what can people do to up their chances? Since like schools are closed and most programs are closed. So what can people do to up their chances to get accepted into universities and colleges? Maybe we can begin with Eric.
Oh yeah. So if I was the one who was applying this year and I was writing about COVID, first of all, I'll first describe how COVID is actually, how harmful COVID has been, maybe like in my path, like in my life and all and stuff like that. And then, but then I won't just stop at just talking about COVID, for example. Then I'll then highlight some of the key opportunities or like how I evolved, because I think colleges, they know, like in life, people know that in life people know that everything, there are so many things which happen in life, but what they're interested to hear is how you survived those things. So I think right now, if there's any gap, you can do anything online. I think right now, it gets easier. Or if you're a writer, write things. You can set up a blog. You can like write things and like post them on your account on Medium. You can just do so many of these other activities. Maybe it's aiding or teaching people, like maybe via WhatsApp or so many other things. But then whatever you do, you should just have the skill of telling the admissions officers that was you finding a gap when you have squeezed by COVID and all these other things. Okay, I think I need to mute someone. Yeah, I think that's it. Tafara, I think you can also touch on that.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So okay. I have. Can you mute that guy, Eric?
I am Eric.
Yeah.
All right. So I was saying right there, that's good. But sorry, what was the question? That was COVID, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think you answered it very well, guys. Like, you know, with COVID, like just there's this actually like common application essay or like that says describes like a point in your life where like you faced a challenge. What happened? How did it change you? Or like how did you overcome it or something like that? So yeah, like what Eric said, you know, they all know that like we all go through challenges, and I think, but the difference like in people is that like we all react to them differently, or like we go through them like in different ways. So I think if you just sort of like share your stories and like how you survived or how you made it work like for yourself, and here you are still looking for opportunities, even if like, you know, 2020 is against you. So I think that will say a lot like about you. So I think it's just like you trying to contextualize like your situation, to say like the application, to say, you know, like, you know, in my own experience, like this is what I went through and this is what I like managed to like, you know, overcome and all that. So I think that would be like a good way to write about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Then like another question, or not really a question, but I believe you guys have interacted with like a variety of students, especially here from Zimbabwe. So what would be your advice to people, let's say people who do not have good grades, or like what is the minimum eligibility, like the people you have interacted with, the people you know of to the US, what would you advise someone with low marks, or, and like, can you state like the worst case scenario that you interacted with but still managed to go to the US?
Okay, I'll start. So actually, like going on to the COVID question, right? I wanted to say like another thing, even like this question is like in terms of like your if you think like your points are not enough and all that, I always say this, that like you should always make sure to talk to these admissions officers, right? So if you go to like most of these university websites, any, and you go to admissions, there's emails there for people who actually work there, and their whole job is to talk to people who want to apply to the school. So just make sure that like by the time you apply to school, at least you've like so let's say you're applying to UC Berkeley or you're applying to the University of Edinburgh or something like that, right? Make sure that like you always like find time to like at least email the admissions officers, tell them like, you know, you're applying and all that. So that like at least like you get like they tell you more like about the school and all that, and they can even refer you to some international students who might actually be from Zim or from your country, like that can actually help you or tell you about how they did like how they did that, you know, how they did that that the application. And then going on to this question, I always say this: it's not always about exams, it's not always about grades, you know, like people who like I know people who have like some low like, you know, points, but their extracurricular is amazing. Like probably they'll be like head boy. I know of one guy who'll be like a head boy, you know, and he's doing like debate, he's doing writing, you know, and all these other amazing things, winning like writing competitions, doing debate, leadership, you see, leadership, extracurricular, creativity, all these other qualities that are not just like you being good at math and all that, right? So I won't say like, oh, it's this person, like I cannot say that, but like there's plenty of people that I know who've done that have gotten like, I can say like 9 points, whatever, 6, 5, no, not 5, but 6. But I'm pretty sure there are some people who've done like, you know, like they have like points that you wouldn't consider like good in terms of A levels, but they've still done like a lot of amazing things that show that, you know, their creativity is somewhere else. And because, you know, like back home, sometimes you are given like the wrong combination. Sometimes you don't really know, like you're not like the career guidance back home is usually just people saying, you know, because you did this at A level, because you passed math at A level, go at O level, go and do math at A level. So sometimes you don't really, you know, like get good career guidance. But as long as you show that, like, you know, through your extracurricular activities and through your like community engagement, that, you know, you have other like unique talents that can set you apart, I think that will be enough. So I don't know if Eric wants to add more on that.
Oh yeah, I have points to add on that one, because I always get asked that question over and over again, and I've come up with a perfect answer to that question over and over again. But yeah, not perfect, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I think it depends with where you are applying, like which school, and it also depends with who else is applying to that school with you. Because I think mostly, for example, if you apply to a very intense engineering school, maybe like Caltech, MIT, or maybe like you apply for an engineering program at Stanford, then they would want to see like those very strong maybe like points or like A levels and stuff. And I think it also depends with who else is applying. So before, it was like, maybe I don't know about before, but then I think ideally someone you can apply and get into a college. But then the thing is, there are so many people from our region who are competing for these limited resources. So you'll find that maybe a school like Stanford, or maybe like say Harvard, or maybe Williams just wants one student from Zimbabwe, and there are 14 of you applying just for one spot at Williams. So it becomes hard for them to accept someone with a lower criteria when there's someone who has like more higher engagement, involvement, and activities. So for me, I'll just say just read the atmosphere, read the people around you, at least to help, they'll help you gauge how many A's you should have to apply to a certain school. But it's not only just the number of A's. I think the A's for O level, they matter. The SAT, it matters. The A levels, they matter. But then I think they are evaluated in a different context or environment. For example, if you get 6 A's, but then the situations, maybe you got 6 A's and 5 B's at O level, and then you then explain that during that time, maybe you were staying in a child-headed family. There's more evidence that you actually, maybe you had to even walk to school. So if you tell your story to show them, to help them understand your grades in that context. For example, I think that's more of a, they'll understand you better. Maybe let's say you have maybe a certain disability, maybe which prevented you in getting the highest grade. So if you just submit your grade without actually explaining, I think if you have low grades, you should explain why they are low. Don't make the admissions officer just I think or assume why your grades would have been lower. So just also measure yourself sometimes. I know sometimes you also try to be very optimistic, but just have so many different schools which you apply to. Have the top schools, those dream schools which you said, oh, when I was young I always wanted to go to Harvard. Then if you choose those schools, also have some niche schools and some have schools in all 3 criteria. Apply to schools in the US, apply to schools in the UK, apply to schools in South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, and also apply for a backup in SIM.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric Khumalo. Then the second of last question is coming from Shangodi. I think he or she is saying, what are some of the graduate opportunities that one can explore in the United States?
Okay, I think I can start with that. There are so many. There are so many. Right now, I know there's the MasterCard Foundation scholarship. It would be funding. I think it used to be actually they started a 10-year program. So this year they chose some new scholars, and for the next coming 9 years, they'll be funding people for graduates, for graduate level opportunities. So I think, Tafara has posted something there. Also each and every different university, based on what you want to study. If you apply and you talk to the department and then they like you, maybe you're working with a certain professor, that gives you more chances of of getting into the schools. One other thing which we have really faced in SIM or in SIM institutions is how they teach, maybe the academics, they are not as rigorous compared to undergrad level, which maybe at the US or in other places. So for someone who wants to apply to grad school, you should try to do so many other things, maybe collaborate and write a paper or do some internship or just be creative, be innovative, such that you can stand a chance to compete against so many other people. Because if you want to go to grad school, maybe you want to go to grad school, there's also another SIM student who might have gone maybe to Williams College, who will be applying for the same spot as you for grad school. So regardless whether it's undergrad or it's the undergrad application or is the application for masters, know that there are other people who are also applying for that same spot, that you're applying for. So I think you just have to like also emphasize on leadership. For graduate school, emphasize on like the academics, and that research part. If you're doing a research program, I think that's more useful. I don't know more about it because I'm not planning to go to grad school anytime soon. But I think Tafara might shed, some info on that.
Okay, just to add on what Eric said, I shared a few links to the MasterCard Foundation at UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
They'll tell you all about the requirements there, Liam, and also like the application deadlines. And since we're like, we're in touch anyway, I'll be sharing with you about what I'm doing also to prepare.
Definitely.
And I'll link you up with, I think Umdino is doing like a master's. It's doing a PhD or something.
Yeah, a PhD.
Yeah. So, and I'll connect you with a few of the guys that I know from them who are doing grad school, and they can sort of like just talk to us about like the requirements and all that. So I think that would be best.
Yeah. And I also know like a couple of people actually like came here for grad school directly from the same universities, MSU, UZ, and NAST.
They're at UC Berkeley now?
Yeah, at UC Berkeley, or like in the past, most of the masters,
that's good.
they've at UC Berkeley, they've either went to MSU, or they went to NAST or UZ. But what I noticed with most of them is maybe they've graduated sometime in 2010, and then they would have worked for some time. Yeah, they take time. Maybe they work. So now, if they are applying, their application will be much stronger compared to just like leaving, undergrad. So, but I think if you have done so many things, maybe work, have contributed somewhere to make your application stronger, you can like apply. And also, if you look, for example, at the requirements this year, you can decide to apply this year, or you can see what they want. I always also encourage students in lower six to also like visit websites when they're still in lower six or even in Form 4, just to get an idea of how they should prepare. Because so many people, they'll start asking for scholarship just like when it's November or when they now have the A-level results. And most of the time it will be late to start the application process. But if you knew maybe like a year before, and then you knew that the school would want you to have 15 clubs, then you go and join all those 15 clubs. So I think like what Tafara said, Liam is my friend. So we can just get in touch, and then we'll be able to share and connect you with more people who can guide you on that.
Thank you very much, Eric Khumalo. Then the last and final question would be one sentence to like, what advice would you give, one sentence to the young people listening to this call? Maybe we can start with Tafara.
Yeah, okay. So my advice is that like I hope like you see that it's possible, and that there's not like magic or anything, it's always possible, but it always starts from, dedication, curiosity. It always starts from curiosity, like for you to reach out to people who've gotten all these opportunities. And usually like with social media, they're always like one click away. You can reach out to these people, find out like how they did it, and sort of like start, building your, like your future, like brick by brick. Yeah. So always reach out, always be curious, I think. That would be my advice.
So what I can say is, for each and every university that you want to apply to, mostly there has been someone who has been there. You can find that there are some Zimbabweans who went to that university, or some who know someone who went to that university. Don't just apply to a college on your own. Reach out and connect with the person. Like the person might just help read your application essays. They might even give you more tips and more insights on how to strengthen your application. And also, right now, if you're applying, like the application process, there are just so many things which you have to get done. So like for people who are applying right now for undergrad, I'll just advise you to just, connect with your recommenders, with your school, get all the information which they have to fill. Let them do their part way earlier. And then once you get that out of the way, and then you focus, maybe you're starting for your SATs, you focus on your application essays and write them. Try to give yourself an earlier deadline. Maybe say, oh, I want to finish my application maybe 2 weeks before, or maybe a month before. So if you want to finish it 2 weeks before, then if you reach out to people who are studying maybe in the US for them to review your essays and stuff, that gives them more time. Because what I noticed is the time when the application is due, usually for the early application in November. That's also the time when US students, they're having their midterm exams. So many people, they'll be busy. And when people get busy during that time, they block WhatsApp, they don't respond maybe to like Facebook, they just focus on their exams. So then you would want to actually know that information way ahead, so that you can send someone your essay early September, and then they can have more time to actually read it with you, or correct you, or give you some tips whilst there's still time. And then we have had a challenge where so many people, they'll just reach out to you 2 days before the deadline, and someone has so many of their essays. So most of the time you have to, I think most people will be forced to politely decline, to help you. But I think if you know that this is a very lengthy process, just figure out the recommenders, what your school has to fill, because there's so much information which your school has to fill. And so many schools, they are not really aware on how to handle this entire application process. So you should actually be there, helping them, explaining things to them, showing them how to fill each and every part of the common app. And then after you get that done, with your essays, try to connect to people. If you want to apply to Williams, reach out to Tafara and say, oh, I'm interested in applying. Reach out earlier, or you can reach out to either me or Tafara if you're interested in a school. We know so many people, maybe we might, after screening you for some time, just to see if you're serious, and then we can connect you to some people who may think they can give you more help. And then but just do it in a more timely manner.
Thank you very, very much, Eric, Khumalo, and Tafara. I think what we got most from the last question was that we have to reach out, and then you have to do your things while there's still time. So thank you once again, Eric, Khumalo, and Tafara, for being with us on this call. We know that you guys have a very busy schedule. Thank you for spending your time with us. I'm not sure if you are comfortable sharing your contact details in the chat box so that people can reach out to you. Then we'll be uploading the recorded session to our YouTube channel. So for those who did not attend, if you want to help someone, you can just tell them to look for My Digital Backpack, the channel on YouTube. That's where we'll post our video. And we would like to thank our partners, My Digital Backpack, iCreate, for helping us make this day a success. And thank you all for being with us on this call. Yeah, I think that's all.